Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Statara Pravakacharya's Divine Grace Abhay Charanavinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Brahmasikaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radhakrishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Sri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Sri Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning, good morning everyone, we're starting on, this is text 33. We've been studying the Song of the Bee, the 47th chapter in the 10th canto. Etaranta samanayo yoga shankyam manishinam tvagastapodama satyam samudranta ivapaga etaranta samanayo yoga sankhya manishinam tvagastapodama satyam samudranta ivapaga. Devotees, Yoga Sankhya Manishina Satyam Samudranta Ivampanga Etat, having this, Anta as its conclusion, Samanaya, the entire Vedic literature, Yoga, the standard system of yoga, Sankyam, process of Sankhya meditation, by which one learns to discriminate between spirit and matter. Manishinam, of the intelligent. Tvaga, renunciation. Tapa, austerity. Dhamma, sense control. Satyam, and honesty. Samudranta, leading to the ocean. Eva, as. Apaga, rivers. Translation: according to intelligent authorities, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedas, as well as all practice of yoga, Sankhya, renunciation, austerity, sense control, and truthfulness, just as the sea is the ultimate destination of all rivers. Please repeat, according to intelligent authorities, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedas, as well as all practice of yoga, Sankhya, renunciation, austerity, sense control, and truthfulness, just as the sea is the ultimate destination of all the rivers. Purport by the servants of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Here the Lord states that all Vedic literature is meant ultimately to bring the soul to the point of controlling the mind and senses and fixing them in transcendental self-realization. Thus, processes of so-called yoga, mysticism, or religion that involve unrestricted sense gratification are not actually spiritual processes, but rather convenient ways for foolish people to justify their beastly behavior. Lord Krishna here assures the gopis that by fixing their minds in self-realization, they will realize their spiritual oneness with the Lord. Thus, they will no longer suffer the pangs of separation. Om Jnana Tinamandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umnidham Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Vir Krishna Das Goswami Niti Namine Namaham Sanakashaya Prabhupada Payate Sudrita Sudina Syamam Tashavaki Nivadine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Vishesha Sun Pashyajate Shaktarine. So here we are again. Lord Krishna's, speaking to the gopis in as much as to try to pacify them somewhat. They have been missing his association quite a lot, and they're quite bereft and very much distraught that they are not able to be with him, or they have been. And now that they're hearing a little bit more about, the process which they are in, because we got to remember the gopis are actually, they're just innocent. They're innocent cowherd maidens. They're, I would say in common vernacular, they're very naive. They're very pure. They're not really, scheming, or they're not strategizing. They're just, what you see is what you get. They love Krishna with all their heart and soul. They want to please him with every fiber of their being, and that's all they know. They're not really, they're not kind of able to, they're the highest devotees, but they're not in a position really to, think of anything else except for pleasing Krishna. That's their whole and sole focus, which is what we as Bhakti Yoga practitioners obviously aspire to. And it's a little difficult because, especially being in this material world, we're subjected to so many adversities. But actually, talking about the different practices of Sankhya, the yoga practice, a lot of people, we know probably a lot of people that want to, they think they're doing all good in the world just by, charitable acts, or, I'm sure you've met people who, feel like that just being helpful and truthful and, just a good person, what people might perceive as being a good person, is the best they can do. That's what they do. They feel like that's their contribution to the world. And that's great. It's definitely a start. Those qualities are desirable in devotees, as we know from chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, the divine and demoniac natures. Having decent sense or good sense control, practicing austerity, being truthful, being clean, all those things are prescribed for those who are looking to realize the personal aspects of the Lord, or trying to cultivate a relationship with Krishna. And also in this purport, the servants of Prabhupada are kind of honing in on the point of sense control. All Vedic literature is meant ultimately to bring the soul to the point of controlling the mind and senses and fixing them in transcendental self-realization. So all the literatures that we discuss or read or hear on a regular basis, plus all of the Vedas, we've heard about what are the Vedas? They're the oldest sort of treatise for humankind. And most scholars and also the people in our movement, the exalted devotees, agree that the Vedas are just there to, they're a rule book for being a human being. They're actually a guidebook for how we should conduct ourselves, the different Vedas. And it gives very detailed information. The gopis, however, obviously that wasn't anything that they were interested in. And, as we practice bhakti yoga, I can't really say, except for excerpts here and there, I can't really say I've read the Vedas or have listened to anybody read the Vedas. I don't really know much about them personally. But they are there for the betterment of humankind, so people can act in such a way that they can realize the absolute. In our bhakti yoga practice, we are fortunate enough to have the instruction of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami on how to conduct ourselves as proper devotees, by his example and by the examples of his devotees. And, we have some texts, obviously, that we read, and we're able to reform ourselves by, because if anybody reads the 13th chapter, especially the beginning about the divine and demoniac natures, I'm sure we can all pick out, at least I can, pick out very pointed things in the demonic natures that I know I need to try to get rid of. I got to work on, I got to work on myself. It's a process of introspection. And to that extent, I feel like the Bhagavad Gita has quite a lot of information woven throughout that can help us in that regard to, better ourselves. There's a lot of anecdotes and very proper analogies. So I'm going to just read a little bit of chapter 2, and this is part of contents of the Gita summarized, and this is starting with text 58. Yada samharante chayam kormo nanga viva sarvasha indriya artabhyas tasha pragnan pratishtita. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Purport. This is by Srila Prabhupada. The test of a yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of the senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. That is the answer to the question as to how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi, or the devotee, must be very strong to control the serpents, like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do-nots, and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the do-nots, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up his senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna-conscious persons are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna is being taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of for his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. Personally, I always think about this a lot. I think about it a lot because it's extremely tempting and it's very easy in this material world for the senses to kind of run amok. You know, there's so many temptations on a daily basis, everything from, what we're doing or what we're eating or who we're associating with, like that. There's so many opportunities that are given to us, I'm going to say by Maya. I know that sounds fanatical, but I feel like Maya's I've heard that Maya's sort of Krishna's, I actually just saw a little snippet from Prabhupada. Maya is Krishna's guard. You know, she kind of makes sure whoever is approaching Krishna is actually worthy to be in his company or worthy to serve him, worthy to associate. Because even in the Dasharas, as servitors, we're in Krishna's association. You know, it may not be in such a position as his parent or whatever, but as we serve him means we have to approach him, and to even be in his intimate midst, you know, not even having very much, reciprocation or conversation, like a parent or a lover or a friend would. Even in the servitude, still have to have some measure of purity and sense control and cleanliness and all the things. So, particularly with the point of sense control, it's so easy to justify, I'll say, when we're a little bit off the rails, And actually, I feel like in the beginning, and even up till today, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm beyond those things at all, but in the beginning, it was a little more difficult because the practice wasn't there. When your practice makes perfect, when you're just figuring it out and you're trying to, see what your own buttons are. I mean, it requires a lot of introspection. You have to see what buttons are pushed or can be pushed with regard to how your reaction will be. It's sort of like observing, being an observer to a little bit of a play, because there's so many other variables that come into the arena when we're trying to execute our bhakti yoga by ourselves, but the variables come in when there's other devotees, situations, time, place, and circumstance. That's always a consideration when we are going through our lives and trying our best to do the right thing, And that's something that each and every day, I'm sure maybe everybody feels the same way. When you get up, you're like, okay, I have a fresh opportunity to give it my best, to do what I need to do, and to be the best person I can be, to try my hardest. We all have that sort of sense of a little bit of fresh hope, a little bit of new renewal and beginning. And, it's not easy to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back on the horse day after day after day after day after day. Yesterday when Gopi Gita was talking about how long someone has practiced Krishna consciousness, I was thinking about it. I've actually was thinking about it recently, because time goes by so fast. Time it's such an elusive, and it just boggles the mind how time works. And of course, Krishna's time I am, Kala. And it's kind of fascinating to watch progression of others, but personally, I don't even think about my own progression, because there's no time. Actually, there's just keep moving forward, and trying to push everybody also along at the same time, because, we're all in it together. We all have to try to lift each other up and pull each other along. Sometimes we have to drag one another along, Sometimes dragging someone is like trying to drag a rusty anchor along the bottom of the sea floor. It's very difficult. And that's to be expected, and everybody is here to help one another. We're all in this together. We have to help one another in that way. And even with regard to our controls of our senses, that's why and how we're able to check ourselves is our association. That's extremely important in Krishna consciousness, is the association. I've sometimes talk to people who maybe moved away or live far away, maybe are in this community sort of occasionally, they live far away, and they're so relieved to come to the temple and have the association of other devotees. Not only is it a social thing, but it's also accountability, right? We have to be sort of accountable for ourselves, but if we're in association with other devotees, Krishna speaks through them. Krishna uses us as his instruments, particularly when we're, here in the Dham, we're doing this process. Krishna will use us daily, each and every one of us as his instruments. And I'm sure everyone can attest, sometimes someone will say something and it'll be like, wow, that was exactly something that I was thinking about, or that's exactly something I was wrestling with, some help with that. That's how Krishna's helping. And, it's a beautiful process, but we have to do our part with regard to striving towards self-realization with the control of the senses and all of the things. Actually, I hadn't planned on doing this, but I'm just going to read really quick the, it's chapter 16. I'm going to just read really quick the divine and the demonic natures. I'm not going to read the whole purport, but I'll touch on it because this is talked about in this Bhagavatam verse. You can't just take one aspect, the Sankhya, for instance, Sankhya Yoga. And actually, I think he spoke, he gave the very succinct synopsis of it about Sankhya Yoga. Or maybe not. Oh, I must have been reading that somewhere else. To follow these different practices, it's not just one and done. There's many things there's all the bases that have to be covered when we're working through executing the Bhakti Yoga practice. So this is in chapter 16, and this is text 3. Well, it's text 1 through 3, actually. Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence. I would say that's devotional service as we're executing it on a daily basis. Cultivating of spiritual knowledge, which is what we're doing. Charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas. And, the Srimad Bhagavatam basically is the condensed Vedas. We don't have to go into, reading all the 4 main Srimad Bhagavatam. And I would even say the Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Bhagavad Gita are all, they're condensed, what we can digest and what Prabhupada has given us to derive the purport of the Vedas. Austerity, simplicity, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Those are the sort of qualities that obviously the gopis already imbibed. They were just bereft from Krishna. So, Krishna's kind of speaking to the choir for our benefit here. And when we kind of look a little bit closer about those associates of Krishna, namely the gopis, we hear that they're the topmost devotees of Krishna, and whatever they do is only to please the Lord. And all these qualities, the divine qualities, the divine nature, that's what we're trying to ascribe to, we're trying to cultivate. And little by little, it's a struggle because we're in this material world and we don't get a break from, the pushings and pullings from the threefold material miseries. We don't get those breaks. Our only hope actually is to take shelter of the holy names, to take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, and on a daily basis, for better or for worse, to be with the devotees, to be around sadhu sangha. And I'm sure everybody can agree that, some days are better and some days are worse. But it's all good because being around the devotees reminds us that, Krishna's there. And sometimes he speaks through a devotee, and sometimes he shows things that, about ourselves, holds up the mirror that we're able to see clearly for improvement. And that's what we are trying our best to, reach or attain in the same mood as the gopis. And I'm just going to read also text 59. Because this gives a little bit about how to, negate some of the, senses. I mean, it's also said in the Bhagavad Gita, the senses are like wild horses. They're just being dragged everywhere. They're very difficult to control. And I'm sure we know that picture of Krishna in the back of the chariot and the jiva driving the front of the chariot, and there's 5 horses that represent the uncontrolled senses. Vishaya vinivartante nirahara shadehina rasavarjam rasopyasha param dristva nivartate. The embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though the taste for sense objects remain. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual processes like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, danya, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. So those are like, mechanical. It's like a mechanical practice. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness, no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life, but such restrictions are only good when one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. And I will say that personally, the best way for me, well, not only is my service that my guru has prescribed to me based on my psychophysical nature helpful in that, because I don't really have too much time to contemplate very much apart from that, but also the deity worship is extremely helpful. Actually, Prabhupada gave us that worship of the Archa Vigraha as a means to eradicate those sort of impurities in the heart and to focus our attention and our love and our, our senses wholly and solely on the pleasure of the Lord. And, anybody that's in the temple and doing any sort of service, whether it's making garlands or cleaning the temple or picking flowers or, working on equipment, what to speak of, obviously, cooking for the Lord or dressing the Lord like that, performing artis. Anybody that is doing any of those things is automatically a little bit promoted to someone that's in the inner recesses. And Krishna will start to see, Radharani recommends, oh, this person's doing very nice service, in your dham or in your house. So let's bring them along a little bit further, take note of that person, give them your mercy. That's Srimati Radharani. She recommends those things. And, Krishna, who is a little bit aloof, and he's aptakama, he doesn't need anything from us or want anything from us particularly. He wants us to reciprocate with him, but, he doesn't need our little bit of, our service. He doesn't need us to cook oatmeal for him, honestly. He's not really... I don't think he's relishing it so much, but, that's just me. But we're doing it, and we're doing it out of love, and we're also thinking that, okay, I'm going to make the best darn oatmeal ever. I'm going to put apples. I'm going to put a coconut. So something that Krishna will enjoy, trying our best to serve the Lord in that way. So any little service when you're in the dham, that's why these temples are here. That's why Prabhupada established the temples with the deity in the temple, so we could everyone can come, anyone can come, and they can render service. They can render devotional service and thereby be purified. And every little bit of purification that we get, little by little by little, that's kind of like fortifies our armor, so we're able to better resist that onslaught of the material energies. We're better able to go within ourselves. We're able to draw in ourselves and think to ourselves, okay, this is not favorable to my Krishna consciousness. Or, as we say, accept everything favorable and reject everything unfavorable. We can also use our senses positively in Krishna's service. I know, when picking flowers, if they have brown or they have, they're eaten by insects or whatever, they're rejected. So we can use our senses in that way to pick nice foodstuffs, to cook, nice boga, shop for nice jewelry, look for the best flowers, make sure everything is clean and dry and serviceable and ready to have Krishna inspect, because he's always seeing, Krishna's in everyone's heart. And I'm always personally, thinking, okay, if someone brand new walks in the door, how will everything look to them? What will they think? How will they perceive this house of God, this house of Krishna? And, when we think about others also coming to Krishna and trying also to achieve some level of self-realization, as Krishna is advising the gopis here, and the Bhagavad Gita is teaching us, as we go through our lives, and we're also trying to, again, bring others with us, help them along. We want to help each other along, because that actually is the only way we're going back to Godhead. We're going back together. We're not going back alone. We've seen in the example of Dhruva Maharaj and different personalities, when given a boon to go back to Godhead, Dhruva Maharaj said, "No, I can't go rule the pole star without my mother. I can't do these things. She's the one that told me to go out and look for Vishnu in the forest." Everyone's helping our effort to achieve that level of Krishna consciousness. And we should all be grateful for that. Even if it's not very comfortable, even if we get corrections, all those things are just to be taken in with gratitude and sincerity that, okay, this is going to make me better because Krishna's talking through this person and I need to listen. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't leave time for questions. Sorry about that. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the devotees of the Lord, and all glories to New Goloka Dham and Sri Sri Radha Golokananda.
Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Bharavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Bhako Vidamaniya Nishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Vajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Lasyan Dipan Dikayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurusham Amaham Vajami 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 Govindam Adipurusham Amaham Vajami
Shri Nam Kirtan, page 77. Yasomatinan dana Prajabhara Nagara Matinan dana Prajabhara Nagara Yasomatinan dana Prajabhara Nagara Gokularan Janakana Ranjanakana Gokularan Janakana Gopi Paranadana Madana Manahara Piparanadana Madana Manahara Gopi Paranadana Madana Manahara Kaliya Damanavi Gana Kaliya Damanavi Gana Kaliya Damanavi Gana Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Amala Harinam Amiya Vilasa Vipina Purandara Navina Nakarabara Pina Purandara Navina Nakarabara Vipina Purandara Navina Nakarabara Vamsivada Nasubasa Sivadana Vasa Vamsivada Prajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Jana Palana Surakula Nashana Prajajana Palana Surakula Nashana Nanda Godana Raka Wala Nanda Godana Raka Wala Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Govinda Madhava Navanita Taskara Sundara Nanda Gopala Sundara Nanda Gopala Yamuna Tachachara Gopi Vasana Hara Muna Tachachara Gopi Vasana Yamuna Tachachara Gopi Vasana Hara Rasa Rasika Kripa Maya Rasa Rasika Kripa Maya Shirara Balaba Vrindavana Nathabara Shirara Balaba Vrindavana Nathabara Bhakta Vinod Ashraya Bhakta Vinod Ashraya Shirara Balaba Vrindavana Nathabara Bhakta Vinod Ashraya Yasamati Nandana Prajabhada Nagara Yasamati Nandana Prajabhada Nagara Gokularan Jana Kana Gokularan Jana Kana Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya, Prabhupada, Jaya, Prabhupada. Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jaya, Jaya, Prabhupada. Nitai Gaurari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bo. Jaya Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Radha Golokananda, Shirare. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Gurudev ki jai, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Golokananda ki jai, Giri Govardhan ki jai. Lord Krishna, beloved son of Yasoda, transcendental lover in the land of Braj, the delight of Gokula, known by the nickname Kana, the wealth of the lives of the gopis, the attractor of Cupid, and punisher of the serpent Kalia. These pure, holy names of Lord Hari are full of sweet nectarian pastimes, Lord of the 12 forests of Braj, ever youthful, the best of lovers, play of the flute, and excellent dresser, protector of the inhabitants of Braj, destroyer of demoniac dynasties, keeper and tender of Nanda's cows, giver of pleasure to cows, land, and spiritual senses, husband of the goddess of fortune, butter thief, and beautiful little cowherd boy of Nanda Maharaj, wanderer of the Yamuna river banks, thief of the garments of the gopis, enjoyer of the mellows of the rasa dance, very merciful, lover and beloved of Radha, the great dancer Vrindavan, and the only shelter of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Jayam Vishnu Padmanamsa Pavakacharya Sotara Sachishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Padmanamsa Pavakacharya Sotara Sachishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Bindi Ki Jai. Namachara Sridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanath Shamakunda Radha Kungiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavana Ram Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Gokul Dham Ki Jai. Dwarka Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Gagamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Lordship Shri Shri Radha Golokananda, Shri Shri Guru Ranga, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
स्वादनम सर्वात्मना सनातन परमं विजेते श्री कृष्ण नाम नामकारी बहुधा निज सर्वशक्ति तथा पिता निमते समरेण काला पिता ऋषि तव कृपा भगवान मापि दुर्देव अनुरागा तरणपि सुनिचयन तरुरपि सहस्यनाम अमानेन मानदेन कीर्तनया सदारि न धनं न जनं न सुन्दरीं कवितां वा जगदीश कामे मम जन्मनि जन्मनि ईश्वरे भक्तार्भक्ति हेतुकैतवे अयि नन्द तनुजा किङ्करं पतितां मां विस्मे वराम्बधु कृपाय तव पद पंकजा स्थिता धूलि विचिन्तया नयनम् असहारया वदनं गद्गदारुदाया गिरा पुलकिर्निचितं वापु कदा तन्नाम ग्रहणे भविष्यति युगायितं निमिषेण चक्षुषा प्रभासयतं सुन्ययतं जगत् सर्वं गोविन्दाय वर्णे मे आश्लिष्य वा पदरतं पनास्तु माम् अदर्शनं वर्माहतं करोतु वा यथा तथा वा विदधातु लम्पटो मतप्राणनाथ तु सा एव न प्रा victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleans the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of benediction move. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss, and it enables us to taste the nectar for which we are anxious. O my Lord, countless chanting of your holy name alone can render all benedictions to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. They are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking one's